Okay, so let's start. In the last class, I was talking about continuous functions in multivariable calculus. So now I'll give you one or more examples based on continuity, and then we'll proceed further. So one question is this. So this is the question. You see, the question says that the function is this. When y not equals to 0, the function is ax plus b sine x by y, and when y is 0, it is 0. That means in the x-axis the function is identically 0, and any elsewhere it is this. But a and b can be any numbers. Prove that the function is continuous at 0. So simply apply the definition. Simply apply the definition of continuity, the epsilon delta definition, right? So let epsilon greater than 0. I want to prove that there exists some neighborhood of 0 0 for which this is less than epsilon, right? Because I have to prove that function is continuous at 0 0. I will have to some neighborhood of 0 0 for which this thing is strictly less than epsilon. This thing is strictly less than epsilon. So we'll start with this one. Let's start with this one. Let's simplify this. What is this? I'll do it here itself. This is ax plus bb. It is by, okay. Ax plus by and sine x by y minus f0 0 is 0. Why? Because when y is 0, it is 0, independent of x. So it's 0. So what am I getting? I'm simply getting modulus of ax plus by sine x by y. Just as simple as that. Split the modulus. It is modulus of ax plus by times modulus of sine x by y. Now this is lesser equals to modulus of ax plus by due to the fact that sine x by y, its modulus is lesser equals to 1. So it's straightforward up to here. Now let's apply the triangle inequality. This is lesser equals to modulus of ax plus modulus of by. This is same as writing modulus a modulus x plus modulus b modulus y, right? Now you see the same logic, mod x is lesser equals to, this is lesser equals to mod a root over of x square plus y square plus mod b. You know this reason because mod x is lesser equals to root over of x square plus y square. Mod y is also lesser equals to root over of x square plus y square. Take that common. So this is nothing but mod a plus mod b root over of x square plus y square. Right? Now you see, this is less than epsilon whenever this will be less than epsilon by this quantity. But you see one thing, this may be 0 at times, because if a and b both are 0, suppose if a and b both are 0, then this quantity will be equal to 0. In that case, how will you divide with 0? So to be on the more safe side, by the way, when a and b are 0, the function will be identically 0. But anyways, to be on the safe side, what I will do, I will write down this is less than mod a plus mod b plus 1. I'll add this by 1. This is definitely less than this. So this is less than epsilon whenever this quantity is less than epsilon by mod a plus mod b plus 1. I'll call this as delta or delta square, suppose. Understood or no? Let us conclude. So thus for any epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta positive such that for all x comma y in the domain is actually all real numbers anyway, so for all x comma y satisfying this x square plus y square less than delta square implies modulus of this is less than epsilon. Thus, by definition of continuity, f is continuous at 0, 0. Okay. And one thing that you all had, some of you had made mistakes. Remember, neighborhood are this. This is a circular neighborhood. This is a rectangular neighborhood. Suppose greater than b, and this is a rectangular neighborhood, and this is a square neighborhood, less than a and less than a, and suppose more than b, more than b. Only these are neighborhoods, okay? You cannot write anything like x square into y square is less than epsilon, that will be a neighborhood. No. Only these are actually my neighborhoods. Circular, rectangular, square. There can be other neighborhoods, but mostly we will be discussing about these neighborhoods only in the definition. Whenever you write definition of limit or anything, you should always use this neighborhoods only. Okay, your maybe some set x square into y square is less than delta square, that may not form a neighborhood of that point, because there is a condition for neighborhood. You remember, there should be an open ball inside that containing that point, then that will be called a neighborhood. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so this is all about the question. Let me take another question, and maybe the last question from continuity. So this question I'm talking about, let fxy equals to e to the power minus mod of x minus 2y by x square minus 4xy plus y square plus 4y square. Okay, you just see it very carefully. E to the power minus mod x minus 2y divided by x square minus 4xy plus 4y square. This is in the power of e. I should have written exp. That should have been better. Whenever x is not equals to 2y, and whenever and in this line x equals to 2y, the function of the value becomes 0. Okay, show that f is continuous at 0, 0. Okay, show that f is continuous at 0, 0. So what I have for x not equal to 2y, this is the function, right? This is the function. So modulus of fxy minus f00, 0, I have to show that this is less than epsilon, right? So one thing you see, what will happen if I take x equals to 2y? Why I am not considering that case? Because when x equals to 2y, the function is 0 and this is also 0, and that is less than epsilon. So that case is very trivial. We are only interested in this case, right? So when x not equals to 2y, let's see what happens, whether this is less than epsilon or not. But this is nothing but the modulus of this, no? Because that is 0. So modulus of e to the power minus x minus 2y, and in the denominator is nothing but, you just carefully see, what is the denominator? It is x minus 2y whole square. right? Did you understand? This is, you just put this in a formula for a minus b whole square. So this is nothing but x minus 2y whole square. Now what I will do, I'll write here mod without any hesitation, that will not hamper, because a minus b whole square is same as mod of a minus b whole square. So you see, one of these quantities will cancel. I'll remain with e to the power minus 1 by mod of x minus 2y. Okay? And exponential always gives you positive values, because e to the power any number is always a positive number, cannot be negative, so no need to give this mod. If you have any doubts up to here, please ask. So this should be less than epsilon. I have to find some neighborhood for which this is less than epsilon, right? So let me choose some epsilon, or let epsilon is definitely greater than 0. So usually take let epsilon greater than 0, but here I am restricting one thing, let epsilon be less than 1 also. For the first case, you see, epsilon is always arbitrary. It can be however small, it can be however big. For the timing, let's do this thing for this epsilon only. Let's do this thing. Let's do the let's see whether it is true when I choose epsilon here. Okay, so let me choose epsilon between this range 0 to 1. Okay, so I have to prove that this is less than epsilon. So this is less than epsilon whenever this is less than epsilon. So let me write that down. Right? So there might be a confusion, sir, epsilon is arbitrary, but you are choosing epsilon between 0 and 1. I will clear that. Let me first choose epsilon between 0 and 1, and let's see what happens. So therefore this quantity is less than epsilon if e to the power minus 1 by x minus 2y is less than epsilon, right? Yes, this was nothing but this. So whenever this is less than epsilon, this will also, if this is less than epsilon, this will also be less than epsilon. So using this equation, I can call this as some equation. Using this equation, I have to find some neighborhood of 0, 0. I have to find some neighborhood of 0, 0 for which this is true. Now taking log both sides, do you agree with me? If I take log with the base e both sides, this will happen. Writing here log, writing here log, right? And this will, by the power law of logarithm, this will go outside and log e is 1. Now let's solve for 1 x mod of x minus 2y. So this is nothing but less than minus log epsilon. Therefore, if I reciprocate both sides, this is more than minus 1 by log epsilon, right? So this is less than epsilon whenever this quantity is more than minus 1 by log epsilon. My claim is this quantity is a positive quantity. You might disagree with me, sir, there is a negative sign and you are telling that this is a positive quantity. Who can tell me why this quantity is a positive quantity? Very good. Yes. Because I have taken epsilon to be between 0 and 1. Remember, whenever x is between 0 and 1, the value of log x is always negative. You can plot the graph or use the definition of log to just check this fact. Okay, log x between 0, when x is between 0 and 1, it is always negative, and then log 1 is 0, log 0 is minus infinity, and then after 1 it is always positive. So keep that in mind. So log epsilon is a negative quantity because epsilon is a number between 0 and 1 and there is a minus, so that will make it plus. I'll call this epsilon 1. So let epsilon 1 equals to minus 1 by log epsilon, which is greater than 0. You have the reason. So thus, this is less than epsilon whenever mod of x minus 2y is greater than epsilon 1, is greater than epsilon 1. So I have done up to here, but this is not the definition of continuity. This is not a neighborhood of 0 0. Keep that in mind, and that should be less than, by the way. This does not contain 0 0, because if you put 0 0 here, 0 is not more than any positive number. So this is definitely not a neighborhood of 0 0 at all, right? So I have to find such a neighborhood of 0 0 for which this will be true, for which this will be true. So hold on. Yes, no, I hope I made some mistake, is it? No. Did I make any mistake in the inequalities? So this is negative. Oh, yes, I made a very big mistake. So this should be greater than, because I am sending negative. So this will be less than. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And yeah, so this will be less than again. Right, so this is less than epsilon whenever this quantity is less than epsilon 1, but still this is not a neighborhood of 0 0. Okay, this may contain 0 0, but this may not be a neighborhood of 0 0. Now what I'll do, I have to find some neighborhood of 0 0 for which this is true. So now you see what I'll do. Now I guarantee that this is my neighborhood. You see how I'll guarantee. Now let mod x be less than epsilon 1 by 4, okay, and mod y is less than epsilon 1 by 4. I'll tell you how did I know that I will have to choose as epsilon 1 by 4. Now clearly this is a neighborhood of 0 0. I am choosing all those points whose x coordinate satisfies this and y coordinate satisfies this. I am choosing those points whose x coordinate satisfies this and y coordinate satisfies this. Let's see what happens. Okay. So then let's see what is this mod of x minus 2y. What can this be written as? By the triangle inequality, this is nothing but mod x plus 2 mod y, right? Mod x lesser or equals to, this will definitely become plus, and 2 mod y. Let's simplify this. Mod x is from here, so this will be less than epsilon 1 by 4 plus 2 mod y. This is again epsilon 1 by 4. You simplify this is 3 epsilon 1 by 4, which is less than epsilon 1. So whenever I am choosing points from this neighborhood, mod of x minus 2y is equal to is less than 3 epsilon 1 by 4, which is nothing but less than epsilon 1. This condition has been satisfied. So whenever I am choosing x and y from this neighborhood, right, this condition is satisfied, and whenever this condition is satisfied, this condition will satisfy. So thus, I'll choose delta to be this. Choose delta equals to epsilon 1 by 4. Thus, for all x comma y satisfying mod x less than delta and mod y less than delta, try to understand my point. For all x comma y satisfying this condition, mod x less than delta, mod y less than delta, this quantity is becoming less than epsilon 1, And whenever this is less than epsilon 1, what I have, mod of fxy minus f00 is less than epsilon. Understood? Okay. Now you could have chosen epsilon 1 by 8 also, epsilon 1 by 8 also, doesn't matter here, because what I wanted, I have to choose such x and such y. I'm not in the circular neighborhood this time, I'm just taking the square neighborhood, that is also allowed. I wanted to choose mod x less than some quantity, mod y less than some quantity, for which this becomes less than epsilon 1. And the quantity that I chose is epsilon 1 by 4. If I would have chosen 2, this may not hold. You see, if I choose epsilon 1 by 2 plus 2 times epsilon 1 by 2, this will become 3 epsilon 1 by 2, which is not less than epsilon 1. This is the reason I went for 4. Okay, now this is true when epsilon is less than 1. What if epsilon is more than 1? How will I do, or what will I do? Any idea from your side? This I have done when epsilon is less than 1. But we cannot conclude by that. No? What if epsilon is more than 1? I have to do the whole thing. Tell me. You see, what I will do, you give me now epsilon more than 1. I will choose the same delta. Whatever delta has come in this case, delta is nothing but this. I'll choose this same delta. Whenever this delta is chosen, this is less than 1. Epsilon is less than 1, so this is less than 1. So whenever you give me any number more than 1, 1 is less than that number. Understood my point? Whenever epsilon is more than 1, I will choose the same delta. I'll choose the same delta whatever has come here. Come in this case for less than 1. And whenever this is satisfied, I know this quantity is less than 1. And this 1 is less than any given epsilon which is more than 1. Understood? So remember, what we do, whenever we have done a proof for epsilon less than 1, we don't show any further. We can just conclude directly that it is true for any other epsilon, because the same delta will work for any other epsilon more than 1. So what I will do, I will simply conclude without showing for epsilon greater than 1. You can also skip because that part is very trivial. So just to conclude here in the last line, therefore f is continuous at 0, 0. As for any chosen epsilon, this is holding. You just conclude, okay, that's all. So we have just done the definition of continuity. Based on the definition of continuity, we have done so many sums, and I have not done theorems based on continuity, and I will not be doing much theorems, because all the theorems actually comes from real analysis, that you know, if D is a closed and a bounded domain, then a continuous function is bounded there. All those things will be also true here, and the proof also follows directly from the definition, everything. So, and those theorems are not important in this course, because this is basically a course that involves a lot of sums. Okay, so you can go through those theorems by your own, just follow the definition of continuity and do the proofs. So whatever theorems that you have done in your real analysis course for continuity, all those things will be true here as well. Okay, like for example, if D is a closed and bounded domain and f is a function from D to R, then you know that any continuous function on D is bounded. The same thing will happen here as well. If D is a subset of R2 or R3, the same thing will happen here also. Okay, so those theorems I will not be doing. That an algebra of continuous function, the sum of two continuous function is again a continuous function. All those things will also follow here as well. Okay, now this theorem, which is not that trivial but very simple theorem, we will do it. Okay, which theorem? This is the theorem. Let me write it down. So all those theorems I will not be doing, and those are not important for this course, to be very honest. Okay, you are interested to study, you should study. I'll provide you the notes. Go through the proofs. Ask me if you have any doubts. Now let D be a subset of R2 and f be a function from D to R. Okay, good enough. Be a function of two independent variables, two independent variables x and y. Suppose I'm writing x and y, okay, and a comma b from the domain of this, and a comma b belong to the domain of the function. So I have a function of two independent variables x and y, and suppose that a comma b is in the domain of the function. Okay, let f be continuous at a comma b. So I'm assuming that the function is continuous at a comma b. I'm assuming that the function is continuous at a comma b, right? Now you see here, yes, then f of x comma b. Now you see, instead of y in this function, I am replacing y by b. So then this becomes a single, this becomes a function of single variable, because only x is a variable. Then this function, which is a function of single variable x, and this function, let me write it down, which is a function of single variable x, is continuous at a. So try to understand my point. When I have a function in R2 which is continuous at the point a comma b, then this function, which is the function of single variable x, this is continuous at a, and similarly, and this function a comma y, which is again a single variable function, variable is y, is continuous at b. So whenever I have a function which is continuous at a, b, is a function of single valued double variable or two variables. But when I have these two functions, which is a function of single variable, this is continuous at a and this is continuous at b. Whenever this happens, this will happen. Whenever this happens, this will happen, but the converse may not be true. We'll see an example. So understood the theorem, we'll prove it. The proof directly follows from the definition itself. Now you see, the proof is very simple. So because f is continuous at AB, right, we will apply the definition of continuity of two independent variables. So since f is continuous at a comma b, use the epsilon delta definition. For any epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta positive such that what happens? Modulus of fxy minus fab is less than epsilon, such that, actually I should write here. I'll write it here. Whenever this holds, right? Whenever for all x comma y satisfying mod x minus a is less than delta and mod y minus b. This is a square neighborhood. This is the square neighborhood of the point a comma b. I'm taking the square neighborhood for simplicity. Okay, so because f is continuous at a comma b, for all epsilon greater than 0, there will exist a delta greater than 0 such that this happens. For all x comma y satisfying this will imply this. This happens, that will imply this will happen. I should have written this at the front. Okay, anyways, so whenever this happens, this will happen. This is by the definition of continuity of two independent variables. Now you just put in this equation, you put y equals to b. Why can I put y equals to b? Because this condition is satisfied. If I replace this y by b, this is b minus b, which is 0, and 0 is less than delta, right? Because you can see here also. So I can put in this equation y to be b. So let's write this equation again. Therefore, for any epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta greater than 0, delta positive, such that what will happen? Let's see. What will happen? Let's see. Modulus of fxy, sorry, fxb, such that modulus of fxb minus fab is less than epsilon whenever this condition we are not interested to write. This condition we are not interested to write, okay? Because this is a very trivial condition. So whenever mod of x minus a is less than delta, and x is from the this thing, x comma b is from the domain, such that x comma b belongs to the domain. So just look at this condition. Just look at this condition from here up to here. This is the definition. You just forget about this b. So fx minus fa is less than epsilon whenever x minus a is less than delta. This is the definition of continuity that you have done in your single variable course. So therefore, fxb is continuous at a. Did you understand the proof? It is extremely simple, just following the definition. Similarly, you may put x equals to a here and get the another result. So I'll simply write a proof, because for the second part also it is very trivial. So keep in mind what has this theorem told us, that if f of x comma y is continuous at a comma b, then fxb and fay both are continuous at, suppose this is at A and that at B, right? So I'll just simply write down this continuous at a comma b. This implies these two ones. This x comma b is continuous at A, and f a comma y is continuous at b. So this is implying this, but the converse is not true. But the converse is not true. That means even if both of these are continuous, then also the function fxy may not be continuous. Let's see an example for the converse. Example. Consider this function which you have seen so many times. So you try to remember this function. This is a very nice function which is helping us to disprove so many things. When x comma y is not equals to 0, 0, it is 0 if x comma y is 0, 0. Look at this function. Let us find this function f of x comma 0. Let's see what is this function. That means instead of y I am putting 0. When I am putting 0 here instead of y, right, because I can put 0 here instead of y, because you see, when both x and y are 0, then it is 0. But when one of them is 0, then also it is this condition is satisfied. So suppose x is not 0 and y is 0, then what will happen? I am putting here y equals to 0. I am putting here y equals to 0. I am getting 0 by a non-zero number, because I am assuming that x is not 0. So I am getting eventually 0 function here. For this case I am getting 0. But when both are 0, when x and y both are 0, then also I'm getting 0. So eventually this is 0 for all x. Did you understand my point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And this is clearly continuous at 0, this is continuous everywhere. Similarly, and f of 0 comma y is also 0 for all y from R. Clearly, f of x comma 0, just use the definition of single variable continuity. Okay, so this is continuous at x equals to 0, and because limit at x equals to 0 of the function is 0, same as the functional value, and f of 0 comma y is again continuous at y equals to 0. So both of this function I am choosing b to be 0 and a to be 0. B to be 0, a to be 0. So both of these functions are continuous at x equals to 0 and this one is y equals to 0. But f of x comma y is not continuous at 0, 0. Why? I have already done this. Can anyone tell me why this is not continuous at 0, 0? Why this function is not continuous at 0, 0?
While approaching the limit point via the line y equals to mx, we get different values of m.
Very good, very good. Because I know that limit x tends to 0, y tends to 0 of this function does not exist. Because if you approach 0, 0 along the line y equals to mx, I will get different answers. So because the limit at 0, 0 does not exist, the function cannot be continuous at 0, 0. So hence, I have already done this, but you can write it down. But this is not continuous at 0, 0. So this proves that the converse of this theorem does not hold. The converse of this theorem does not hold. This will hold. This if f is continuous, this will definitely hold. But even if both of these holds, this cannot hold. But remember, the contrapositive of this statement will again be important. That means, if any one of these does not holds, then f cannot be continuous at a comma b. So that may be important at some times. Okay, so this completes our chapter on continuity. So we have completed limits and continuity now fully. We will now enter to partial derivatives. But before entering to partial derivative, let me tell you something. Okay, let me tell you or let me teach you something. So do you have any doubts up to here? If you have any doubts, feel free to ask and let me clear a few things now. So how do you plot a single variable functions of single variable? Suppose I have this function fx. How do you plot this function? Anyone who can tell me how do you plot a function of this kind, fx?
So we take y equals to fx.
Okay, very good.
Over x we mark y.
Yes. So what we do? We draw two axes. Here I will take the values of x, that means I will take the domain of the function. Domain lies somewhere in the x-axis. It may not be whole of x-axis, but it's a subset of x-axis. And the images will be plotted here. For example, if the graph of this function, the function is some function like this point is suppose a, and suppose this height is b. That means this is a comma the functional value at a, which is coming to be b, suppose. So this is how you plot a curve, or this is how you plot a graph of some function of single variable. Here you put the domain, and on the y-axis you have the range of the function, and there. So any point on this curve will give you what? Suppose it is giving you 2 comma 5. So what is this? The domain, this x is 2 and the output at 2, the functional value at 2 is 5. So this information can be drawn from here. Now you see here, how do you plot this kind of function now? A function of two single variables, two independent single variables. This time things are very complicated. How? Because a domain is whole xy plane or maybe a subset of xy plane, right? So I will call this as, just as Rajkumar said, we'll call that as y. Suppose I'm calling this as z. So this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. So you see here, and here is negative y-axis, there is negative x-axis. I'm not drawing that, it will be very much complicated to understand. So domain will be a subset of this plane, right? Domain will subset of this xy plane. I have to add another axis here that will read the output. Suppose I am choosing the point to be 1 comma 2 and at 1 comma 2 the output is 3, so that will be plotted on the z axis. So I will get something this kind of curve, maybe like this. Suppose it is floating like this. This is the graph of some function, suppose z equals to fxy. It's just like a thin paper. It should be more curved, suppose like this. Okay, you may just draw like this. Now what I mean by this point will give me so suppose this is A, this is B, so this point is A comma B. So this is the image corresponding to A comma B. So this is actually a triple, I'll just write it here, a triple whose x coordinate is A, y coordinate is B, and the z coordinate will be the functional value at A comma B. Understood my point or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is what we mean by this is how we can plot a function having two independent variables. So this time we have to take three axes at a time, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. So the domain will be a subset of x comma y, xy plane, and my answer, my functional value will be plotted on the z-axis or the z-axis. Okay, now remember one thing, we cannot plot functions having three independent variables because this time the domain will be x, y, z, will be a subset of the space x, y, z axis where will we plot the functional values. That is fourth dimension, we cannot visualize. We cannot visualize the fourth dimension. So this is the reason we will not study anything for R3. Now onwards, we will only restrict ourselves to R2, and definitely you can definitely analogously define everything for R3 and so on for Rn, but we will only focus only on R2. Okay, now let me give you one or two things. Now what we mean by continuity, there is no hole in this paper. This is a paper, something like this, right? I have drawn something like this. This is the graph of the function. A torn or twisted paper, something like this. You can just visualize that. There is no holes in this paper. That means the function is continuous everywhere in this domain, right? Okay, just a minute. When the function,
That point that will have.
hold on, just hold on. If z is this, if I write z is this, you know this is a plane. This is the equation of a plane. This is a function of two variables. But if it is something like this, x square plus y square plus 7xy, this can be any curve. This is no more a plane. We will not call this as a curve. These are known as in general, they are known as surfaces. They are known as surfaces. Just give me a minute, I'll tell you one more thing. So I am plotting some functions, okay? So you see what is this? I have plotted the function root over of x square plus y square. I have plotted this function. Now you see here, for different values of x and y, I am getting a different z coordinate which has been plotted here. So you can see, this is just like you eat bhelpul, no? So that kind of curve is coming, as you can see here. You just visualize for different values of x and y, you are getting a different answer, and that we are plotting in the z axis, and you can see how their curve is. Not curve. Curve is a very wrong term to use. The surface I am using. You can see how nice this surface is looking. You can plot different curves as well. You see like this. I'm plotting. Suppose I'm plotting x squared. Just a minute. X square e to the power minus y square. Y square. Yeah, you see, I'm getting this kind of curve. As you can see. Right? So nice this curve is looking, no? It's looking very interesting. Okay, so you can just draw many pictures. You see, drawing graph is not that easy. In this case, but we can actually visualize. But when I take suppose a plane of this form, x plus y minus 7. This surface is actually a plane. Hold on. X plus y minus 7. So if we turn to a plane, a very weird plane is coming. Let me change that to something interesting. I hope it's going to get a different plane. No. 5x. Let me take an easy plane. Yeah. You see, this time when the function is 5x, z equals to 5x plus 2y, it is coming this plane. As you can see, this is a plane like this passing through the origin. It's just like a plane. Okay, so in general, these are known as surfaces. In general, they are known as surfaces. Nothing else. They are called as surfaces.